Hey everybody, it's Mike, Mahadeva, Thunder Wizard. What's going on? I'm looking for the, okay. All right, so obviously I wasn't enlightened about the placement of my necklace there. Now I am. I've achieved necklace enlightenment. All right, so the title is pretty clear. 11 misconceptions about enlightenment. Can you achieve enlightenment in this life? Let's expose some of the lies you've been told or the misunderstandings. So, I got to be honest with you. One of the things that helps me do this channel is also something that I kind of struggle with. I get annoyed. I get annoyed at falsehoods having to do with spiritual empowerment. And let me tell you why it annoys me. Because what I really want for the world is exactly that. I really want everybody in the world to be experiencing their greatest experience of themselves, to be in their highest awareness, to achieve happiness, to achieve what I believe enlightenment is. And so I get angry and I get frustrated when I see people who are teaching things that I believe to be just outright falsehoods. Well, the truth of the matter is that most everybody, is doing the best that they can. There are some con men out there, and it's not even their fault. The con men who are consciously, purposely manipulating you and lying to you, I don't hold them responsible. I hold you responsible for buying into what they say. So that's my job here. Part of my job is to be stimulated and provoked into fighting for human beings' right to live in whatever word you want to use: enlightenment, moksha, liberation, peace, bliss, whatever word you want to use. So today I'm going to look at the 11 misconceptions. Of course, there's many more than that, but that's a convenient number. I stopped when I hit number 11 because I figured, but before we go any further, I want you to first just check in with yourself. Before I say anything, I want you to check in with your own feelings. And the first question I want to ask you is, why do you want to be enlightened? So take some time, answer that question. Why do you want to achieve enlightenment? And then I want you to get in touch with the feelings around your desire for enlightenment. I don't want you to judge them, I just want you to feel them. Do you want to achieve enlightenment because you're unhappy? I'm not judging you for that either. Do you want to achieve enlightenment because you believe it will give you some control over life? So think about that for a moment. Do you feel out of control? Do you want to achieve enlightenment so that you can be free from disease? What is it that you want to achieve? Now, when I ask you what it is that you want to achieve, I want you to then reverse engineer and go back to what it is that you don't like about yourself. Again, I can hear all of the intellectualizations that people are saying, oh, well, I accept myself exactly as I am, but is that really true? Because if you did, would you be seeking enlightenment if you accepted yourself exactly as you are? I did some research. By research, what I mean is looking on, different YouTube channels and different YouTube videos to see what it is that people are talking about, what I think people are trying to find out. And all it did was it annoyed me. It angered me. And again, it angered me because my desire is to be helpful, is to help people achieve their greatest happiness. And I believe it is a very simple thing. It might not be easy, but it's very simple. And I get very protective when I feel that people are being misled. And I get impatient with people who I perceive as choosing to run away from things that they already know. So I'm doing my best to not be as aggressive as normal, and I'm going to let myself do it if I need to, because that's my role here, is to be that guy that slaps you across the face sometimes and says, what the hell are you doing? Why are you wasting your time with that? So where do I want to start? I mean, I could go in so many different directions, but let's talk about the 11 misconceptions about enlightenment. Let's start with that. First one, enlightenment is freedom from ego. The idea that your idea of the self, the limited self, is somehow preventing you from experiencing enlightenment. And I probably see this more often than anything else as people will talk about, people who claim to have achieved enlightenment. Many of them will say, yes, I was trapped in my ego and I went beyond my ego. So I'm here to tell you that freedom from ego is not enlightenment. So good news is, if you've got an ego, you can keep it. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about why you need to have an ego. I'm going to go through all 11 of them, then I'll go back and hammer away at each one. So freedom from ego is the first one. That's a misconception. Second misconception is that enlightenment is the experience of non-duality. So if you look for enlightenment, you're going to see non-duality consciousness, things like that. I have to tell you that that's just a fancy way of saying ego. So I'm going to put that in the misconception. Experiencing non-duality is not enlightenment. Number 3, breaking the barriers of the physical. So I've seen this numerous times. It's in fact some of the stuff that I listen to from some of these so-called, gurus and enlightened beings who wear the robe and the thing, and they talk about enlightenment. And one of them is breaking the barriers of the physical. That is not enlightenment either. Here's one. This is conflated with moksha. Moksha means liberation. And a lot of people believe that escaping reincarnation is enlightenment. That's not enlightenment either. In fact, I think you could escape reincarnation and not have achieved any enlightenment. Number 5 is living in the moment. That enlightenment is living in the moment. That's the closest one. Actually, that one is pretty close, but it's incomplete. Let me just say that. I like that one, but it's incomplete. That's not enlightenment either. Here's one. Enlightenment is seeing the truth. The truth. Like there's one truth. That's not enlightenment either. 8, enlightenment is an experience of bliss. So if you are able to get into an experience where you're just completely blissed out, that is enlightenment. In fact, some people seek for and believe that you can achieve this experience of bliss that will last for the rest of your life, and that once you achieve enlightenment, it'll always stay that way. We'll talk about that more. Number 9, I just said it. Number 9, the ninth misconception of enlightenment is that enlightenment is a permanent state to be achieved. And once you've achieved it, that's it. You don't have to do anything else. You've achieved it, and you just sort of ride the magic carpet of enlightenment until who knows what. Number 10. The misconception about enlightenment is that enlightenment is antithetical to your physical existence. The idea that the physical is bad and spiritual is good, that was said earlier. If you can escape the barriers of the physical, that is enlightenment. I was listening to one guy again with the robes and the thing, and of course he had an accent, and he was talking about how when you achieve enlightenment, you go beyond the physical, but the vibrations are so intense that we can't handle it, and so it puts you in this state of not feeling good enough. And if you could just get to that place where this guy is with the white robes and the garland and if you could get to that state, which again is just such a trap, because then you just end up following some guy who has achieved something you don't feel you can achieve. And number 10, the 10th misconception about, that is the 10th one. The 11th one, the final one. Here's the biggest one. Here's the biggest misunderstanding of all. The 11th misconception about enlightenment is that enlightenment means eradication of karma. There are people, and maybe you're one of them, there are people who believe that they're walking around with this negative karma that is ruining their lives, that is keeping them from seeing the truth, that is keeping them from experiencing the spiritual realm. And if they could just either find a way to get rid of their karma or have somebody take their karma away, that then they would be in a state of enlightenment. So they look for that. This is a lot of times why people look for teachers. And I've even heard teachers claim to be able to take people's karma away. We'll get back to this, and that is impossible. Nothing and nobody can take away your karma. It's impossible. So, sorry, enlightenment does not mean eradication of karma. The good news is, if this is a misconception, then that means that you don't have to get rid of your karma to achieve enlightenment. All right, so the definition. So let me just say something here. Hi guys, this is, let's see how many people do we got on here. This is a question and answer. We've only got 10 people. I'm only looking for questions. I'm happy that everybody's got an opinion, but feel free to go onto your channel and start spouting your opinions. I'm really interested in questions only. The reason why is because if we get a lot of people on here, it just muddies everything up and I have to scroll through all of your opinions. And because I get annoyed at people's misconceptions, it's very likely that your opinion, in my opinion, there's gonna be something about it I don't like, which means I'm gonna slice you to pieces. So for your own safety, just have a question. Questions inspire me to go deeper. And again, I'm just one person. You don't have to believe me, but obviously I like my own opinions or I wouldn't share them. All right, let's keep going. Let's go at these one at a time. Freedom from ego. As I said that, somebody put on something which makes me want to go. This is what I'm talking about right here. All right, so freedom from ego. Number 1, the misconception of enlightenment is freedom from ego. If you didn't have an ego, you would not be human. So if what you want to do is escape, if you want to escape, I'm going to have to block this because all the comments are just distracting the hell out of me. If you want to escape your human life, then by all means try and get rid of your ego. This is not only a misunderstanding, it's an outright destructive teaching. My other channel is a channel devoted to people who've been in relationships with people who have mental illness, specifically cluster B personalities. I was in a relationship with a woman who had very severe borderline personality disorder. And what I can tell you about that, this is also true for people with narcissistic personality disorder. The thing about that is that people who have this mental illness are people who have no ego. And they are the most damaging individuals I've ever been around. Borderlines themselves actually want love more than anything else, and they can be extremely spiritual. When in any given moment, you might experience the most wonderful, beautiful, healing, loving, conscious intelligent person just shining brilliantly. And in the next moment, they can become the most psychologically destructive, the most horrifically destructive people you've ever been around. If there is a devil, he's a borderline. Now, these people have no identity. That's the cause of their illness. They have no identity. So those of you seeking to escape your ego, what you are experiencing is exactly what the borderline has mastered, which is destruction of the self. So freedom from ego is not enlightenment, and anybody who talks about it like that is misunderstanding it. And I get these questions all the time. What's the difference between whatever it is I'm talking about and ego? There's an assumption that your ego is bad. Your ego is just something that brings you into three-dimensional, limited experience. This is a choice. If you didn't have an ego, you would, another example would be somebody who was schizophrenic. Schizophrenics cannot distinguish between limitation, and they totally can't function in this world. There was that movie, I forget the name of it, but the schizophrenic guy standing next to some other guy, and there's a plane flying overhead, and the schizophrenic guy says, "Are you flying that plane?" To which the guy says, "No, I'm right here." But the schizophrenic can't tell the difference between you sitting there and you being up there, flying the plane. You can't tell the difference because he doesn't have a cohesive ego, so he can't understand that. So freedom from ego does not help you in this life. In fact, it can be incredibly toxic. So let's get rid of that. Somebody who's trying to destroy their ego is somebody who is filled with self-hatred and shame. And if you're filled with self-hatred and shame, at the very least, you unconsciously unleash it onto others. That's, again, what a borderline does. Borderlines, the ones that I've met, there's all different kinds, but the ones that I've met are so sweet and loving and want nothing more than to be connected, loving people. But because they have no self, they are so destructive. They're the closest thing to evil I've ever experienced. So this gets us to number two. The number two misconception about enlightenment is experiencing non-duality. Non-duality is exactly what it means. Duality means this versus that. I'm me, you're you. So when you get to a state of non-duality, that is enlightenment. I don't agree with that. I believe that somebody who is enlightened can have both. In fact, you must have both. You must have an ego. You must be clear about your ego, and we could talk about it being an illusion or a construct. I'm happy to have that discussion all day long. But you have to have one. And while you're doing that, you can still have an understanding and experience of non-duality. But if you get completely lost in non-duality, that is just as bad as being lost in your ego, and that is not enlightenment. Again, it's escapism. And I have nothing against escaping. I have nothing against doing things that take you out of uncomfortable feelings or doing things that again, my whole reason for living is surfing. It's the thing I love the most, and that's why I do it, because it gives me an escape, and it's wonderful. So I'm not against any of that. But seeking to destroy your individualness is escaping your pain. And everything I'm going through here, you're going to see the underlying theme here is people seeking to escape their pain. And if that is your reason for enlightenment, number one, I completely understand and I completely relate. And because I do understand and I do relate, I'm telling you that that is extremely destructive. Trying to run away from your pain is destructive. True enlightenment means you can have any feeling. Happiness, sadness, pain, misery, suicidal thoughts, murderous thoughts, happiness, joy, contentment, love. You can have all of these feelings and be enlightened. In fact, to be enlightened, you must be able to have them without any judgment. Can you do that? It's okay if you can't. I'm working on that myself. The third misconception, breaking the barriers of the physical. This is, again, it's just another expression of what we've just talked about. People who don't like themselves, who feel out of control, who feel pain and misery. They believe if they can break the barriers of their physical body, that will give them enlightenment. This is why people want to escape the matrix. It's the same thing. It's just another phrase for the same thing. So the assumption is that the physical realm, which is limited, is evil. It's bad. It's unspiritual. People who are attached to their physical bodies are evil. People who are attached to physical life are unspiritual, and so we must break through the barriers of that. That is a misconception. In fact, the whole idea of enlightenment has to be achieved within a limited state. Otherwise, it's not enlightenment. So let me repeat that. It's important. You cannot achieve enlightenment unless you are already in a limited state of being. So that is the prerequisite. Your soul actually sought out. Your soul chose to become incarnated in limited three-dimensional reality so that then it could achieve enlightenment. And it knew that the pressure of being in three-dimensional reality was what pushed them towards that. I was reading something about, I like going to the gym. I like lifting weights and all that. And I was reading about this different way of working out that I'd never heard of. Normally what you do is you go in and you work, really hard to failure, and then you rest, and then in between that your muscles build up, and you have to rest in between, otherwise you can overtrain, etc., etc. There's this whole new way of working out, which I forget what it's called, which is you work the same body part every day for like 30 days or 90 days or something like that. And the examples were people in third world countries who did things like carry buckets all day long because, in order to live, that's how they make money, And so these people have huge traps, they have big traps like this. And they found out that the stress of having to do that forced the body to go through all kinds of things to create, all this muscle. The limitation, being forced into limitation, will then create a pressure cooker scenario where you going after your awareness, your enlightenment, will then create this enlightenment experience. So you can understand those same guys, if they didn't do that, they wouldn't survive. They live in a third world country, and you don't have a car, you don't have this, you've got to figure out some way to live. So this guy carries buckets back and forth from wherever it is, and that's what he does all day, and that's how he needs to do that. He wouldn't do that if he didn't have to. He could care less about his giant traps. He just could care less about that. He just wants to live life, and that's what he has to do to survive. So the idea is that when you push yourself beyond certain boundaries, then all kinds of, your body, nature, reality shifts in such a way where you get far more than you normally would on your own. So the idea is that the physical is bad is wrong in terms of enlightenment. You have to have that pressure, and then you have to work within that pressure in order to achieve something amazing. Your soul knows this. And your soul sought this out. In fact, I say that, all the gods look at humans and go, oh my God, they are so amazing. That in order to have a human soul and have the privilege of being incarnated in this physical world, every other being looks at you and goes, man, look at that. I have such respect for that. I wish I was evolved enough to be able to do that. And yet we sit here complaining about it, thinking that it's a punishment. The fourth misconception, escaping reincarnation. As I just talked about earlier, the soul chose to be here, to be in limited three-dimensional reality so that it could achieve something that cannot be achieved in the infinite state of bliss that it was in. So if your whole motivation for enlightenment is to escape reincarnation, that's completely antithetical to the whole reason you came here. That's why when I tell people, if your motivation is to escape reincarnation, you are guaranteed to come back. The people who don't come back are the people who said, yeah, I'll come back. I had a great time. I really enjoyed my learning experience here on Earth. Yeah, I would totally come back. But if you're sitting there going, I hate this place, I'm never coming back, guaranteed you are coming back. Why? Because you'll look back on that and you'll listen to yourself and you'll go, the whole point was so that I could overcome these challenges and get this really great, powerful experience. And I got to go back. And this time I'm going to make it harder on myself so that I finally get so tired of the misery that I stop playing the game and I start going after and living by the soul. So escaping reincarnation, that's not enlightenment. Living in the moment. I said this is my favorite one of this, but it's incomplete. I won't spend a whole lot of time on it, but this goes back to what I was saying. Living in the moment means having every single thought, feeling, and impulse and not having any judgment, not pushing it away, not denying it, and not being forced to act on them without consciousness. Having all of your thoughts and feelings, no matter how painful or uncomfortable, even if the bliss of something is more than you can handle, having all of that and then having the awareness to take conscious, constructive action. That to me is living in the moment. And then here's one. A lot of people say that enlightenment is nothing more than seeing the truth for what it is. That is an absolute crock of shit. What truth? The truth? What is the truth? This can only be something that a limited ego says. The truth. There's only one truth. Well, if you live in duality, since we're talking about the whole non-dual thing, then you realize there is not one truth. There is not one perspective. I have one perspective because I have these eyeballs that can only look in one direction at any time. In order to perceive where I am, my eyeballs take in reflections of light and then create these things. So I'm under the illusion that, my glasses are here and my mouse is here and there's a tree out there and there's a car right there. Those are all constructs of all this energy that's around me, expressing itself in all kinds of different ways. The experience of that tree out there is not the experience of me, because the tree doesn't have eyeballs and it doesn't look in one direction. Its experience is going to be its roots, it's going to be, its trunk that's looking 360 degrees, the leaves that are, out in the sun, and, all of that. It's not going to see things, like I do. I see things in a dual reality because we're evolved from predators who need to be able to see prey and follow them and stalk them and hunt them and eat them. So I see things in a dualistic way. So there is not one truth. So that doesn't work. Number 8 misconception: enlightenment is an experience of bliss. That same borderline I talked to you about could also go into these states of bliss, these states of, what do they call that? Dissociation, where she would go into bliss. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a feeling. People who think that enlightenment is some blissful experience and that's what they're seeking, this is somebody who's running away from their pain. And the thing about pain is the faster you run away from it, the greater it becomes, the stronger it becomes. So running away from your pain is not going to accomplish anything. People say they want to seek this experience of enlightenment, which is blissful, and I've got nothing against it, but that's not enlightenment, because it's not we get to the next one here, which explains it. The ninth misconception is that enlightenment is a permanent state. So people who believe that enlightenment is bliss have this assumption that once they achieve this state of enlightenment, they will be permanently in some state of bliss. And this is, again, somebody who is seeking to escape their pain. I'm not judging you for having pain. I'm just telling you seeking to escape it is just a form of denial, which only makes it stronger. And whenever people seek to escape their pain, deny their pain, you are guaranteed to cause pain to other people on an unconscious level. You won't even know you're doing it. So it's the worst kind. The worst kind of destructive behavior is the one that's done unconsciously. There are people that consciously cause other people pain, and that doesn't make it, good or bad, but those people who consciously do it can choose differently. If, however, you have unconscious pain that you are running away from, you will not be able to make the conscious choice whether or not you're going to harm somebody. You will always be operating from the feeling that you're the one who is the victim, you are the one that is wronged, and you will not see all the damage you cause to others when you're in that state. So you can't run away from pain. You have to deal with it. Enlightenment, number 10, enlightenment is antithetical to physical life. This is, one could make the argument that the whole concept of enlightenment is a new concept that has only arisen in recent times. I mean, Buddha predates Christianity, but the whole idea of Buddhism is escaping or transcending, however you want to look at it. I mean, I'm not trying to bag on Buddhism because there's a lot about it I like, but the whole idea of that enlightenment is something beyond physical life. So, point I was trying to make is that most people who walk around with this don't understand it, but they're either conscious or unconscious Christians, because that's what Christianity is. Christianity started from Gnosticism, and let me just please take a giant double-barreled shotgun and destroy that misconception that Gnosticism is some kind of spiritual, healthy life path. It's not. It is denial. It is escapism. And it starts with the assumption that physical life is evil, that the physical world is evil, and the non-physical is a spiritual state of being. And so what you're seeking to do is, going into some monk, mystical, state, because the early Gnostics were mystics, and they're trying to escape their physical body. And the reason they're doing that is because, again, self-hatred. You hate yourself, you hate your physical body, you hate your ego. You see that Jehovah is not the creator, but this evil overlord over earth, which is similar to the devil. That's really where the devil came from. The idea of the Christian devil came from the Gnostic belief that Jehovah was actually an evil being, and then there was the true God above that, right? So this whole idea that physical life is evil is some kind of punishment. This goes back to the idea that, being born is a punishment. And remember, assumptions are everything. And if you start from the assumption that you were born because of some sin and some punishment, that is going to define the rest of your existence. However, if your assumption is that you chose to come here because three-dimensional physical reality was a really fun place for the soul to be so that it could accomplish and experience things that it can't experience in the infinite, then you have a whole different life path ahead of you. Your challenges, your pain, your difficulties are things that you can use to overcome so that you can achieve this amazing state of whatever you want to call it. in three-dimensional life, and the soul will gain more strength, gain more knowledge, gain more fulfillment, gain more happiness. Your soul came here to achieve more happiness, and it knew by being thrust into a three-dimensional video game, it would have a lot of fun. But in order for the video game to mean anything, there has to be real challenges. There has to be the perceived threat that you could die. And so that's why we're so afraid. And so that's the temptation that you're supposed to overcome, is getting wrapped up in things like greed and fear and control and all of that. And when you understand that those things don't give you happiness, that what does give you happiness is to go after the thing that your soul came here to do, then you don't have to fight that. You just go, oh no, that doesn't get me what I want. Greed doesn't get me what I want. Hatred, violence, fear, those things don't get me what I want. That's what I want over there. I want to surf empty beaches in a semi-tropical existence. That's what I want. And then you go after what you want instead of what you don't want. And then finally, enlightenment means eradication of karma. This is the 11th misconception. So, karma is nothing more than the consequences, the results of your actions. Karma is neither good nor bad. If you are alive and you are breathing, you are operating from far more positive karma than negative karma, no matter how miserable you may think you are. So even if you want to tell me about all this karma that you have, this negative thing, I'm like, are you breathing? You have a place to live? Are you sane? Are you physically well? Then there's far more positive than negative. Why aren't you talking about the positive? Well, because nobody likes pain. I understand that. But here's the good news. You don't have to get rid of your karma in order to achieve enlightenment. People chase after gurus and teachers because they think the teachers are going to be able to take their karma away. I remember reading from somebody who, it was a guy who taught mantra. As it turned out later, I would have to say he really didn't know what the hell he was talking about, because he didn't understand that mantra, each mantra has an astrological vibration to it, and just throwing out mantras like candy. In fact, what he would do, he would create these things called mantra cocktails, where he would take 3 or 4 mantras and do them in a row. Like he would do one mantra followed by another, and having no idea that the number one mantras don't work like that. You do one mantra at a time, because each mantra has a deity and it has a rishi, which means like, a seer. And so it's like trying to have too many cooks in the kitchen. There's one chef who has the recipe. So imagine trying to create dinner when you've got 10 different recipes being thrown at you. That's what happens when you do multiple mantras. He didn't understand that, and he actually believed that his teachers could take away his karma. And he talked about, one of his teachers putting their hand on a student and then slumping over and saying, no, it's just karma, I'll take it from you. As though somebody can do that. How can that be? How can somebody take your karma away? How can Jesus die for your sins? He can't. Only you can overcome your self-imposed negativity, S-I-N, your sins. Your karma is the result of your actions. They're on you. They could never, ever be transferred to anybody else. Nobody will ever be able to take them away. The closest that anything can do, like a deity, is that energy can come in and bring you awareness of the results of your actions. So you can go, oh, that's right. I was unconscious about my desire for love, and I pretended that I didn't have any, so I would go around, and the way I treated people caused all this negative karma, which made me more lonely. Oh, I get it now. You get an awareness of your karma, and that is given to you as a result of the deity working through you and energetically bringing that awareness to your consciousness, but nobody takes it away. So if you're looking to be enlightened because you think that your karma is some punishment that's arbitrarily given to you by some outside source, Let me tell you something else about karma. I don't know the exact percentage, but I'm just going to make up a percentage here. I'm going to say here that 90% of your karma is simply your own reaction to yourself. If you can stop judging yourself, 90% of your karma immediately goes away. If you're able to look at yourself like without any judgment, say, oh yeah, when I got in that fist fight when I was 10 years old with that kid, that created that negative thing so that I had to learn what that was like. So that's why I got beat up 5 years later. And then, oh, I get it. That's no fun getting beat up. You did that to yourself. But if you walk around with the guilt of it, then that karma can build and build and build. So I'm going to say you can get rid of most of your karma simply by seeing yourself, which again is different from Christianity, which wants to give you forgiveness of your sins. You don't even have to know what they are. I'll just forgive you them. No, you have to know what you did. You have to understand how you damaged yourself. And if you start from self-love, you'll know that these actions are damaging to you. For instance, the 10 Commandments. Does anybody really need to be commanded not to steal, not to commit murder? Does somebody really need to be commanded to do that? That isn't self-evident to you? If it's not self-evident to you, then yes, you are an infant, and yes, somebody has to tell you what to do. But the thing is, if you're connected to your soul, you're not going to do any of those things anyway. You don't need somebody to tell you what to do and what not to do. You already know. This doesn't feel good. I can tell this isn't good for me. I don't want to do that. All right. So, okay, I've already talked about all those things. What else? There were some other things that I wanted to talk about. I guess I wanted to look at some comments, but since I've run into a pause, I'll go ahead and take any questions. I prefer questions. And bear in mind, as I said before, if you write anything other than a question, you're putting a target on your back, and I'm going to come looking for you. I'm going to come, if I sense any denial, any ego, any unconsciousness, I'm going to bring it to your attention, probably in ways you don't like. So honest questions are the best way to do it. Be free. See, this is what I mean. Be free says reincarnation keeps us in slavery. No, it doesn't. Reincarnation was your choice because your soul said, I want to learn. I want to grow. And my God, the most fun is putting on those virtual reality goggles and going down into earth and feeling as though I'm trapped in this three-dimensional thing, because when you're infinite, a tree doesn't look like a tree. The ocean doesn't look like the ocean. It's just this mass of energy. But when you're in three-dimensional reality and you're shrunk down to this size, oh my God, that mountain is huge, and I can feel the wind on me, and I have this hunger, and I eat, and it feels good, and oh, she's pretty, and we make love, and that feels good. So I'm sorry that you think that reincarnation keeps you in slavery, but it doesn't. Reincarnation was your choice. And you chose, before you became human, you knew going into it that once you decide to come into this three-dimensional video game and to understand that this world, this matrix is here to serve you in whatever way that you need, you knew that you were committing to perhaps thousands of lifetimes before you were going to be able to get out. And the goal is to get out, but the goal is to learn and have fun along the way. So just by saying reincarnation keeps us in slavery, you've just added 10 lives. Now the good news is if you can change your assumption and get out of that victim mentality, because you've got two choices. You can either learn to meditate and figure out how you created everything You chose to be here. You're the author of all of your lives and all of your challenges. Or you can believe that you are a victim and that you are kept in slavery by who knows what. So you've chosen, when you wrote that, your choice. By saying that, you've just told the universe, because remember, the matrix is here to serve you. It doesn't know that you don't know that you're God. It doesn't know that you forgot. So when you say reincarnation keeps you in slavery, the matrix goes, oh, everybody, God wants to pretend he's a slave. So let's heap some things on him and make things challenging for her. And yeah, well, I mean, I know it's stupid, but he said he wanted to do it. Don't talk to me, he's God. He said he wants to be a slave. But when you take full responsibility, when you're in that experience of slavery, whatever that is, and you go, I put myself here. I don't know how yet, but I did it. If I put myself here, I can get myself out of here. Now you're no longer a slave. I know you wrote that thinking that it was some kind of deep spiritual, clever thing that you've cut through, man. We're enslaved, man. I'm woke. I know you thought that. That's unfortunate. I don't want to live that life. So if you want to change it, you can you can choose to take responsibility. And that starts with changing your assumption. Your assumption is that you're kept in slavery by something outside of you, as opposed to the assumption that you chose to come here, you created everything. And this is your video game that you get to figure out how to master it. Mama Muerte gives an answer. She says, I believe there are no limits to what we can achieve. Having gnosis in that fact allows me to continue the fight for enlightenment, which is constantly growing. So again, I mean, it's good to wait until you hear me talk. I mean, I know it felt good to go and start, before I started talking, go ahead and answer the question, can we achieve enlightenment? But it's good to listen to what I have to say first, so that I kind of don't have to go into it, because I've already talked about some of this already. You don't need to fight for enlightenment. Let me get to, now that I'm on it, let me get to what enlightenment is. I've been telling you what it isn't. But let me tell you what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is first knowing your authentic self. And what you've written into this video game is that there is a dualistic fight going on. One is the drive of your soul, which is your authentic self. Your true self is your soul. The drive of your soul to achieve and experience what it wants to experience. Mine is surfing. I'm still thinking about it. I'm always constantly trying to figure out how to improve my surfing experience in life. So I may stay here. I may go somewhere else, after lockdown. Who knows what'll happen. I may, who knows? Maybe I'll move to Bali and surf there. Maybe, who knows? I don't know yet. I'm constantly looking, but that's my soul. When my soul wants to do something, I go do it. Now, we have our conditioned self. So you have your authentic self versus your conditioned self. Your conditioned self is the one that thinks that you're a slave. Your conditioned self is the one that thinks that you have to fight for your enlightenment. Your conditioned self is the ego that people are trying to run away from. And so your conditioned self is the part of you that's been told, you need to have a kid when you're 25, you need to be married, you need to be rich, you need to have a house with a garage, and you need to have this, and you need to get up at 4 o'clock, and life is hard, and well, it's great that you want to be a ballerina, but you better come down to earth now, and you better just go live a normal life. You have to give to society, you have to carry your cross, and what is your mother going to think of you if you come out and tell the world that you're bisexual? That's your conditioned self. Part of you that wants to be loved and accepted by the world. Now, as cavalier as that sounds for me to say just don't do that, that's being loved and accepted is part of our human survival mechanism. If we're not loved and accepted in society, especially if you go back in time, 100, 1,000 years, you don't survive. They kick you out of the tribe, and a saber-toothed tiger will come along and, eat you up. So you need to be in the group. You need to be part of the herd. This is the fight. The fight is becoming conscious of, oh my God, this whole time I was trying to please my mom by being less than my greatest. Because my mom told me that if I wanted to, my dad was intimidated by me accomplishing this, and so if I want my dad's love, this is all happening on the unconscious level. So the whole idea of becoming woke is to become conscious of your unconscious issues, not becoming woke to the problems of society. People talk about, I'm woke now. Yeah, because politicians are this. And you think there's something new about that? You just discovered that now? That politicians and bankers can't be trusted? You just figured that out now? Now you've had some deep spiritual awakening that superficiality doesn't... You're woke now? Looking at what's wrong with other people has nothing to do with it. It's you. What about your attachment to society, your attachment to whatever? The things that you did, the ways that you ran away from your authentic self in order to meet the need to feel safe. That's woke. Being woke is you looking at yourself. That's it. It has nothing to do with being able to point out the flaws of society. Nothing new about it. Society's always been that way. Every single presidential election, and go back, every single one is the most important in history. The idea if we can just get our guy in this time, it'll all be okay. When has that ever worked? I mean, at some point, thinking about the United States is at some point going to fall apart. We don't know when. I mean, the Roman Empire fell. The Babylonian Empire fell. The communist, whatever the hell it was, communism in Russia and the giant, that all fell apart. At some point, everything's going to fall apart. And there will just be reality. There will just be, human beings on planet Earth doing their best to survive. So the idea that you've become woke because you see what's out there and blah, so fucking what? Can you see into yourself? Can you get honest about your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own reactions to things? Can you say that I'm living my authentic reality and I'm giving myself the happiness that my soul deserves within physical reality? I don't even need to escape it. Why would I want to do that? I put all this effort into coming here. Why would I want to escape it? Your soul's going to go, no, that was the whole point. I wanted to go there. I got to go back now. Now I got to go back. And I got to take that grade over again because you didn't go to school. All right. Be free gives me, I don't know what this is, man, but I got to tell you, your ego's all over the place. My birth date says enough, numerology. What about what I said was there in the title says, give me your birth date and let's talk about numerology? Nothing. How to fight fatigue, workout doesn't help. That's a huge question. I have no idea. How am I supposed, you want me to, here, take this pill? How am I supposed to help you with that, Anne? How to fight fatigue? Why are you working too much? Are you eating the wrong foods? Do you have emotional issues you need to deal with? I have no idea. How could I possibly know just based on that one question? You got to go a little deeper than that. All right, let's see what else. So Be Free asked me again, what do I think of your birth date? I don't think anything of your birth date because this video has nothing to do with your birth date. Mama Muerte says, I appreciate your, quote, slaying constructive criticism. I don't know what that means. I believe in, slaying constructive criticism. Oh, my constructive criticism is slaying. I get it. All right. Sorry, I didn't understand. Now I do. Let's see what else. Question, Matt M. Question. Is there any type of mala that is best to use for sun mantras? Yes. The default one is this, Rudraksha. Means the tears of Rudra, which is Shiva. Shiva is associated with the sun. But this is your, if in doubt, use a Rudraksha. And I really don't know why they say that or what it came, but let's see, what else? I can't think of another one. That's probably your best bet. All right, so I don't see any more questions here. So was there something else I wanted to get into? No, I already got into that. So operating from your authentic self. Your authentic self is nothing more than your soul. So the sad part, frustrating part for me is that I really, really want to help people to experience their soul. And let me talk a little bit more about enlightenment. I want you to think about what you think enlightenment is. And then I want you to think about why you want it. And am I wrong in assuming that most, if not all of you, want enlightenment because you are uncomfortable, you're in pain, you're sad, you're lonely, you don't like this world, and you want out? You want to escape the matrix. You want out. I don't blame you or judge you for that because I felt the same way. But let me share with you. I've studied with a lot of spiritual teachers. And I've studied with teachers who had amazing spiritual powers. Stuff that if I told you what they could do, you wouldn't believe me. And I have no need to prove it to you. I was there. I saw it. I even went through a period when I was doing some very powerful esoteric energy practices where I was able to do amazing things that were unbelievable, and I'm not going to waste my time telling you about that either. And I'm here to tell you it means nothing. Each one of those people whom I thought must have achieved enlightenment in order to have that kind of power to transcend physical reality and bend the laws of physics and do all these, they must have achieved enlightenment. But the truth of the matter is that they were the most unhappy, immature, destructive, among the most destructive people I've ever known. And they were very unhappy. And when I saw that, I went, oh my God, I've been wasting my time. This guy can do all this stuff I'm working really hard to accomplish, and he clearly isn't very happy. He's a bully. He's like a 10-year-old. Why do I want anything this guy has? There are people that I respect who have never claimed enlightenment, but in terms of my experience, they were the closest. And it turns out they're just as human as the rest of us. They make stupid mistakes. They make big, stupid life mistakes and end up with all this karma and garbage, and even end up getting physically ill, like giving themselves cancer and things like that. In terms of the bliss thing, let me see if I can say this without attacking somebody's character. Of course I'm not going to tell you who it is, but somebody that I knew who used to teach an energy practice that created bliss. He allowed himself to be described as an enlightened being. And that guy ended up getting sick. The whole idea of achieving bliss, that bliss is going to give you that the bliss is enlightenment. And if you can get to that place of bliss, it'll all be okay. But what Buddha taught, and by the way, Buddha didn't teach any of the stuff that the majority of the stuff he's ascribed to be teaching. He just said, the only thing I've ever taught is that attachment brings misery. And that if you walk the middle path where you're not attached, then you won't have any misery. Or you can, he said, that's all I've ever taught. He's never taught anything about life after death. He never taught about spirituality or karma or, any of that stuff. He just said, I just don't want to be unhappy. And I've seen that people who are attached are unhappy. So I seek not to be attached. That's it. All right, let's see if there's any more questions here. Matt M. question, is there a title? Oh yeah, I already answered that one. Guy Home question, would you agree? All right, so I haven't looked at it yet, so I don't know. But when everybody wants me to agree, you're not really asking me a question. You're wanting to drop something on there, and you're gonna give me an assumption, and maybe I'll buy into it, maybe I won't. Anyway, I haven't looked at it. Let's see. Question: would you agree that we are already enlightened and we just have to realize it? Meaning, we are that light. We are already perfect. I would agree with that. But I think that's kind of limited. We'd have to go further with that. I'm not going to disagree with that. The thing is that the answer to enlightenment is very simple. It's not necessarily easy to do. And as I said, if I could find the quick path, I would give it to you. I haven't found that. And all of the people that I thought were enlightened at some point, either really disappointed me or I found out, oh, they're just pretty much like me. And in fact, they do things that I wouldn't do. I'm going to learn from them what not to do by watching some of the mistakes that they've made. I haven't met one person. There's one guy on YouTube who shall remain nameless because I can't really find anything wrong with the guy. But some of the things he says, he doesn't end up saying anything. Or he ends up saying something that's so nebulous and so common sense that he ends up not saying anything, but people clap. He's sitting there with all the people around him, and he's got, thousands of people listening to every word. And he says, enlightenment is just seeing the truth. And the whole place erupts. And I'm going, what are you clapping for? Have all of you people found the truth? Why are you then all sitting there looking up at him like he means something? What does that mean? To see the truth. Again, the truth. What truth? There's so many different potential viewpoints out there. There is no one truth. But it's cotton candy. And it just keeps them happy in the moment. And again, I can't really find anything wrong with the guy other than, Anyway. So would I agree that we're already enlightened? And we just have to realize it? That minimizes it, I think. Minimizes your, we're already perfect and all that. Here's what's bugging me about that. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm realizing what's bugging me about that. What I'm hearing in what you're saying is that enlightenment is this state of being that is permanent and solid and doesn't morph. That's why people talk about achieving enlightenment. There's the assumption that if you can achieve it, like once you get to a certain point, like if you get the light golden body or some other thing like that, and you achieve that level, that then you'll just ride the magic carpet of enlightenment. I've achieved it and I'm there now. That's in there. That we're already at that state and we just have to sort of realize it, and then we can just sort of float along. We need to understand the whole point of being incarnated. The whole point of being incarnated was to have an ongoing, changing adventure of self-discovery. And what you think of as karma, what you think of as negativity, what you think of as them doing it to us, whatever that is, it's just like a video game. You play the video game and you know going into it, you have no idea what's going on. So when we're born, we have no idea what the hell we're doing. And we have to figure things out as we go. But as you figure things out, it's like, video game I've been playing lately is Punch-Out. The Super Nintendo Punch-Out. I played it like 30 years ago, and I've been playing it again. And, once you figure out exactly what to do, then you can knock each of the guys out and all that. And it's fun, but once you figured it all out, it's not fun anymore. It stops being fun. So you have to have a challenge that is beyond your awareness at the moment to overcome. So the idea that we could just oh yeah, I'm already enlightened. While I don't disagree with that, what's missing in that is that there's a shit ton of work that has to be done. The knowledge and the path. And again, I think that when we choose to incarnate, that is a decision that we make as souls, knowing that if I'm going to do this, this is going to be thousands of lifetimes. And here's what I want to learn from that. And your soul knows what it wants. I wanted to talk about, did I put it on here? Let's see. I didn't put it on here. I was going to put on here one of the misconceptions about enlightenment, which I didn't because I just decided to stop at 11. But I could have said the 12 misconceptions about enlightenment. One of them is that in order to become enlightened, you have to completely separate yourself from the world and live as a monk in the mountains, in a monastery somewhere. And if you do that and you have no connection to reality in the world and all of that, then you'll be able to just live from the soul and focus on that. So one of the great things that I've learned from doing Vedic astrology is that there are people who have achieved that. And you can see it in their chart that in previous lives, they've achieved that they lived in a monastery and that they achieved oneness with the universe. They achieved the state of non-duality that people talk about. And then they end up coming back. And then this lifetime, they have a whole completely different focus. And so this idea that enlightenment is one thing versus something else, that somebody can achieve enlightenment in one life, achieve the non-duality and go, well, that didn't do it for me. And then the next time they come back and then that next time they become a porn star. Because they're like, you know what? I did the whole thing of denying all of my physical urges. I just want to have a lot of fun with my physical body and I don't want to follow any rules. And so an astrologer, you don't judge them. Now, when I'm not looking at somebody's chart, I have judgments about what people do and don't do. Not necessarily porn stars, but other types of people. But that's just my limited experience from what I want out of life. So this idea that if we're already enlightened, yes, I believe that, but it takes away the fact that we're here to work towards achieving a desire. Now, this is completely, totally antithetical to most of these superficial explanations about enlightenment, which is that you are going to be free of all desire. No, let me destroy that. That's denial. That in itself is a desire. I mean, there was a period in my life where I lived like a monk and I was practicing, the energetic spiritual martial arts and meditating. And I learned how to release the DMT from my brain. I learned their practices. I mean, if you want to do that, forget about ayahuasca. There are some meditative energy practices that will release bucket loads of DMT where you just, and it's completely drug-free. I did that and I achieved it and came back and said, well, that was fun. Now what? So, but wanting to achieve enlightenment is a desire. Well, like I talked about in the beginning, if you are chasing after enlightenment, especially the New Age version of enlightenment, I'm willing to bet you're in a lot of pain and you're wanting to run away from your pain. So your desire is to be free of your pain and you're spiritualizing it. Instead of sitting around going, man, I'm in a lot of pain and I don't like this. How can I become aware of what's going on with me and work through it? Instead of that, you want to be given the Matrix movie, whatever it is, the red pill or the blue pill, whichever the hell the pill is. The red pill, is that the one you're supposed to take? You're wanting a pill to take your pain away. That's a desire. Nothing wrong with that. But it's just really ironic that your whole desire is to run away. And this is why so many spiritual people also take drugs. And now the cool thing is to take drugs and call it, I'm a shaman, man. Yeah, I did the So yes, I sort of believe that, but at the same time I think that we could go deeper with that. RCP Ashtray threw down $5.99. I guess that's Australian dollars. Thank you, sir. Chris Howder, what's up, man? I know that guy. Man. Hi, Chris. Good to see you. Or good to see your text anyway. Zaralath. Enlightenment diploma hanging from the wall. Yep. Ricky Green, question. My Rahu is in Scorpio and my Ketu is in Taurus. Does Ketu being in Taurus mean that there is more work for me in this life for enlightenment, making it much harder? I mean, I have to look at your whole chart. There's no way I can tell by looking at that. And what house is it in might be even more important than what sign it's in. So I don't do readings here on these live things. Maybe someday I will, but I don't do that here now. So if you want a reading, you know where to go. Astrology.thunderwizard.com. All right, so before we go any further, if you have any more questions, as you know, if you don't ask any questions, I got to sell you stuff or entertain you. So let's hear from one of my most faithful viewers here about why you need to support this channel. So let's see, what does he want to talk about today? Which one of him? This one. All right. So the election's coming up pretty soon, and there's a last-minute candidate for president that's coming in. So I think let's give this guy a listen.
Hey there, pay attention. This is Arnold. I have a very important announcement. I am going to be running for President of the United States for 2020. Listen to me now and vote for me later. Hi, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm going to be running for the President of the United States of the world. Listen, the United States is the most pumped country in the world. We have the most pumped people. We have the most pumped democracy the world has ever seen. We used to be so pumped in the world. Everybody had respect for us. My God, we were so totally pumped. Nobody would dare look us in the eyes. We won every single war there ever was. We won the War of Independence. We said to you, hey, England, you British Empire, forget about you. We are more pumped than you. And we won that war. And then there was the First World War. We won that. Here, Europe was fighting with itself. European countries were saying, hey, I don't like you. Hey, I don't like you. They're fighting like that. And then America, looking from across the ocean, said, hey, what are you guys doing? What's wrong with you? Come on, knock it off. And we came over there and we won that war. And then there was the Second World War. And it was all the same kind of things going on. Europe is fighting with each other and the Nazis are taking over all of Europe. And then they start bombing London. And we're watching. And then finally the Japanese come to us and they slap us in the face. And we go, hey, what's going on here? What's wrong with you guys? And we went to the whole world and we pumped and we flexed in front of the whole world. And we won that war too. But that's not what's happening anymore. The United States is not as pumped as it used to be. Nobody respects us like they used to before. Now we are old and flabby and out of shape. We put a big smile on our face and say, hey, we're the United States. Yeah, we're still pumped. But we got this guy running the whole country who thinks that he can just grab the whole world by the private parts. And the world is going, hey, you cannot grab me there anymore. I don't think you are pumped. And they're not listening to us. But I'm telling you now, and you are going to vote for me later, I'm going to come in there and I'm going to make the world a better place because I am going to pump up the United States one more time. And I know, yeah, they say, Arnold, you cannot be president. You were not born here. Hey, it doesn't matter if this guy who becomes the worst kind of idiot in the world goes around grabbing the world by its private parts. This guy can become president. I'm going to say, as Lord Pindar, ruler of the universe, I am going to say that I, Arnold Schwarzenegger, can become president if I decide to. So my new catchphrase is, make America pumped again. But in reality, we're going to make the world pumped again. And when I become president, I am going to legislate. The first thing that I do when I get into office, I'm going to sign the thing, I'm going to hold it up to the camera, and then everybody is required to go to thunderwizard.com, and they're going to subscribe, they're going to hit the bell button, they're going to subscribe to the YouTube channel, then they're going to go to thunderwizard.com website, and then they're going to subscribe there too. And then they're going to go to courses.thunderwizard.com, and they're going to buy all of the products, all of the books, all of the services that this guy, I'm telling you, the Shaminator, that guy is really, really pumped in the spirit. He's going to pump you up so good spiritually, you're not even going to believe it. So that's it. Get ready, because here I come, world. The world is going to get pumped again, and there's nothing you can do about it. All right, I'll talk to you later.
All right, so he's going to be on the ballot. I think everybody should vote for him. All right, so let's see. I want to put this back up here. By the way, before I go any further, while I'm talking about it, instead of doing all the talking, what needs to happen to have, one of the things you can do to have this awareness of what it is your soul wants to achieve, which for me is really what enlightenment is supposed to be about. Go to the 90-day challenge, which is at thunderwizard.com. Click around until you find the button for the Warrior 90-day challenge. I take you through physical exercises which will open up different energy centers of the body. In the morning, we work on the Kundalini and open up the heart center, which is where your soul is. Your authentic self, as opposed to your conditioned self, resides here in your heart center. And your authentic self has a desire that it wants to achieve. And when you're able to know what that desire is, you will feel a flush of joy go through your body. You won't be able to hang on to it for very long, so you have to make a commitment once you feel, and then follow through with it. And so in the morning practice, you just press play and you follow along with me as I do it. You can get tapped into that. And then during the afternoon, we come back and you take a look at how has your conditioned mind trying to talk you out of following your authentic self. And to become aware of all of the unconscious programming that you were programmed with as a kid or from society that's actually diverting you from your highest awareness and your greatest happiness. And then the nighttime practice, we do Qigong, and we connect the heart center to the unconscious mind, or the lower center, where everything is created. Your unconscious mind creates everything. Jung said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, you must become conscious of what is unconscious, otherwise you will think it is fate. What he's saying is that anybody who listening to me who says they're doing it, the government this, the beings of light, aliens, they're all doing it, and it's that we live in slavery, that reincarnation is slavery, like somebody said earlier. That means that you are not aware of what's going on in your unconscious mind, and your unconscious mind is the most powerful thing in the universe. It literally creates your external reality for you. And if your unconscious mind is programmed for you to be a miserable slave, then you will say, yes, it is Lord Pindar, the reptilian, whose false beings of light have forced me to come. You'll think it's being done to you. So you have to become conscious of what is unconscious, otherwise you'll think that it's fate, that it's karma, that it's destiny. But the fact is that you create everything. Again, like I said, you have two choices. You can either be a victim, which means you have no power, or you can be a participant. You can be a volunteer. You can be the person who, you may not know, how the hell did I create this in my life? One of my favorite ones is, I'm currently not dating. I'm going on to the dating sites and I'm like, because I'm seeing, I'm interacting with women. Hey, how are you? And should we go out for coffee? And, the moment that I get this vibe of, I have 3 kids and I work, I'm a full-time single mom and I have 3 kids and I have this job. And yes, I would love to be able to have some fun. I'm like, no, I'm not signing up for that. And there are women that I've dated, in my life where they will go on and on about how busy they are and they just can't. And I'm like, there was one time I said, and I didn't realize it. She took it really hard, but I just said, what are you complaining about? Nobody forced you to have 3 kids. Nobody forced you to have that job. Nobody forced you to do all this stuff that you're complaining about. All of this was your choice. And, there's a reason why I'm single and don't have kids. It's a choice that I've made. Everything in your life you created. You chose to do it. So you can be a victim or you can take full responsibility. So on that last nighttime practice here on the thunderwizard.com 90-day challenge, we work on taking the desires of the soul and imprinting it into the unconscious mind, which will then go out and create a new reality for you. One where you're not stressed and don't have enough time and this and that and they're doing it to me. And you get to, you can have anything that you want if you make the decision and you're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And then, this life becomes a video game. All right. So for that, go to thunderwizard.com and check that out. Subscribe and hit the bell button. You will achieve immediate enlightenment, by the way. Let's see if there are any questions now. RCP Ashtray, question. To differ from the commentary above, what is the best advice you can give to humanity as a whole? So are you asking me to differ from the commentary or you're differing? I don't know what that means. What is the best advice you can give humanity as a whole from the perspective of Mahadeva as to why enlightenment is important and how it serves us? I kind of want to ask why you want me to do that. I'm not enough the way that I am. So for those who may not know, Mahadeva, if I were to give a name to my higher self, is Mahadeva. So here's what I know. Mahadeva is a little less cantankerous than I am. But what I've learned from him is that we live in an infinite... we live in a universe that has infinite numbers of timelines. And this is not just me talking, this is science. This is theoretical physics. The math says that it's impossible for us not to live in a universe where there's infinite numbers of timelines. So that means anything that I can possibly imagine, and even what I can't imagine, has to be simultaneously existing somewhere else. So that means there is a timeline where I am living from moment to moment from my authentic self 100%. And that means, from my definition, I am living my joy. I am consciously and constantly aware of exactly what it is that my soul wants. And I do that thing. I was talking about it earlier. I get on tangents, but people think that desire is evil. Desire is everything. And it's just which desire are you following? I believe that you have a desire that is infinite, that comes from your soul, that came with you. And this whole life is about getting through the distractions which we've put in front of us so that we can become aware of what it is that we want. That's your soul. Mine is to surf. Mine is right now to surf empty beaches in Australia. Maybe after COVID, like I said, maybe it'll be surfing Bali, whatever it is. When I'm done surfing, I want out. When I get to the point where my body can't surf anymore, I'm going to punch out. I'll be done. Take me out of here, because I won't want to be here anymore. Maybe my desire will change, but I doubt it. So from Mahadeva's perspective, there is a timeline where I'm living my highest, most authentic self, which means I'm living in joy. And from his perspective, what he says is that all the other timelines are sort of like a rainbow. No, that sounds so cheesy. We're living in, pure white light, and then there's all these other fractals. There's all these light reflections, which creates all these different colors. And so wherever you are, the one that's farthest away is where you're living just completely for other people, or you're just lost in your obsession. You're, a meth addict prostitute that lives, on Hollywood Boulevard, and sleeps behind dumpsters. That's like at the worst, right? And then there is, some other, on the other one where you're king of the universe and you think you have everything, but you're absolutely miserable because you have no time to enjoy any of the stuff that you have. So those will be the two extremes. And then in the middle is the part of you that is living in the timeline where you're constantly in your greatest soul desire. You're living your highest awareness. So what he says is to align with that. The way to do that is to use your deepest desires as a compass. And so this is in this 90-day challenge why I have the midday practice, which is to, once you've figured out in the morning what it is that you want, you truly want, you go after, you start doing it. What's going to happen is your conditioned self with all of your unconscious garbage, past life garbage, is going to come up and try and get in the way and confuse you. And so in midday practice, you stop and you go, what is my conditioned mind telling me? Which will always be associated with shame. So all psychologists have come to the conclusion now that the main thing for everything, whether it's alcoholism, drug addiction, narcissistic personality disorder, whatever it is, it all comes down to shame. And shame is nothing more than self-hatred. And so when you're full of self-hatred, you do all kinds of destructive things to yourself, whether you become king of the universe and take everybody slave, or whether you become, a meth head prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard living behind a dumpster. Shame is what gets you there. And what is the shame? Shame is shaming yourself for your deepest, truest desire. So your authentic self is when you have the ability to go after what you want. So celebrate your desires. Your desires, your true desires, are what's going to bring you enlightenment. So the whole idea of going off in some mountain and getting away, unless that's your greatest desire, is to live in the bliss of not having any physical desires. If that's your desire, great. But most people do it because they're full of guilt and shame, and they're trying to run away from their pain. And they think, yes, my ego is bad, which is they're mistaking their desires for their ego. My ego is bad, and I don't deserve to live on this planet, and I'm evil, and I shouldn't think anything positive about myself. Oh, I'm so humble. Look at how humble I am. And if I do that, and then they find out that that doesn't accomplish anything. And then they come back next time, like I said, they become a porn star next time in their next life or whatever. So what Mahadeva would say, which is not going to be different than what I'm saying, is that the way to align yourself to that perfect timeline in the center of that rainbow is to listen to your desires and fight against the self-negativity that comes up in the form of some kind of spirituality, or in the form of, well, I have to be practical, or I have to live in the world, or I have to be successful, or I have to have 3 kids and a house, and I have to, those are all the same. It's shame that is telling you that your desires aren't enough. Shaming you for being your true authentic self. That's the goal of all psychology. It's the goal of all spirituality. It's the goal of all philosophy, whether they realize it or not. It's the goal of my channel. Anyway, so I don't know if I told you what you wanted to hear, but there you go. Acer Works question, what's your opinion on sun gazing? Well, I have 2 opinions on that. First, don't ask me things I don't teach. So is there any of my videos where I teach about sun gazing? The best way is to ask me questions about things that I teach. Also, don't ask me about other teachers. Don't ask me about other teachings. So my opinion is I don't know anything about it. It sounds pretty stupid on the surface. You know, if you stare at the sun, you're going to go blind. Maybe you can do it at sunset or something like that, but I don't see it as any different than anything else. What I don't like about the question is the assumption that is connected. You know, my experience with sun gazers who come on the channel and want to talk to me, they have this air of superiority about them, like Christians and other cult members, and they'll say, "Oh, sun gazing is this, and sun gazing is the spirit." And there was one woman, I had to block her, but she kept on coming up and leaving these comments about you should really do sun gazing, and sun gazing is the spirit, and the spirit is God, and God is the sun. And it's like, oh, so fucking what? I'm glad that you like sun gazing. Why do I have to do your thing? Are you so insecure that you can't let me have something different than you? It's okay with me if you want to sun gaze, but don't fucking tell me I have to do your thing. You're a vegan. I'm happy for you that you're a vegan, that you're doing that for all kinds of reasons. We could talk about you're projecting your victim mentality onto animals, but we can also talk about how animals go through pain and they have love, and even a chicken, you can have a chicken become your best friend, and you can have a pet as a chicken, which will, and then you got to kill it, and then we talk about that. And so if that's your thing, go do it, but don't start, thrusting your self-hatred and projection onto me, because I need to eat protein to be comfortable in life. Sun gazing is the same. That's what I don't like about it. Other than that, I don't know the first thing about it. And I don't need to. I don't want to. It's not my thing. So I assume you're asking me because probably you're asking because of some aspect of it that has to do with how it's the perfect thing and this is the true thing and the blah, blah. Listen, I've done that. The guy on here, I don't know if he's still there, Chris Howder Art, he can tell you, he knew me when I was a Taoist monk. And I practiced what I still believe today is the most powerful, energetic, internal martial art that's ever existed. And my experience is anybody that's ever, wanted to spar with me ended up with their ass handed to them. But I thought it was the thing. And I thought if I could achieve that thing and I would achieve enlightenment and I'd become a god and all that. And I then achieved a measure of that and went, oh, this is kind of boring. This is fun, but I'm not happy. So my opinion on anything like sun gazing, where there's this air of this is the ultimate thing, I think is nonsense, ultimately. The most enlightened person is the person that you'll never hear talking about spirituality. I talk about spirituality because I'm still in my throat chakra. I have to talk because I'm still working through my karmic limitations. I'm still working through my lack of complete awareness. And when I get past this and I get up here, and then when I get up here, I'm never going to talk about spirituality to anybody. Because the true masters, I believe, the true masters are the people that realize that everybody's going to get there. They're just going to have to go through whatever they're going to have to go through. It's really pointless me even trying to tell you anything. That's just my delusion that I have something of value. You listen to what I say, assuming you like what I say, and you go, oh, Mahadeva, that's so great. You're such a great teacher. You've helped me this, and people give me these testimonials of, yeah, I've done that thing, and I haven't done anything. All I did was tell you what you already knew. You just needed an excuse to accept what you already knew. How do I know that? Because there's far more other people that don't listen to anything that I say and think I'm full of shit and hate me for, what I say. And that just means that I'm not telling them stuff that vibes with their reality and or they're intimidated by their own awareness of what they know to be the truth. And when I get tired of listening to myself talk and I've achieved some measure of awareness, I won't need to talk anymore. And I'll never say anything. I'll just go, you know what, you'll figure it out. Let's see, any other questions? Nope. All right, that's it for me. I need to eat. 90-day challenge, go check it out. If you like what I'm doing and you want to support this channel, then go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe at whatever level you want. All of my subscriptions will give you access to hundreds, if not thousands of hours of in-depth video where I talk about things that in more detail than I do on this channel. And my goal is to get to the place where all of my other stuff, like if you go to courses.thunderwizard.com, and again, the links are here for a reason, use them. Don't ask me questions about where do I get such and such if you haven't bothered to even click on the link. If you go to the link there, you'll see all the stuff that I sell, all of the video teachings and packages and certifications. And my goal is to eventually get to the place where all of that stuff, which is in the thousands of dollars, I'm going to put that onto the thunderwizard.com Patreon subscription site. And so all you have to do is just subscribe for a month at a time, and you can leave whenever you want. You can pick the ones that you want, and it costs you a lot less money. But in order for it to be worth it to me, I need a lot more subscribers. So the more people that we, if I have 10,000 people subscribed at thunderwizard.com, trust me, I'll be doing everything for free, and I'll be on here doing all kinds of stuff. I won't tell people, I'm not going to do your chart on the, I'll do anything you want, and I won't worry about it. So that's a way for me to say to you, get your ass over there and subscribe. The more people that subscribe, the more time I spend on the channel, and the more stuff you're going to get on that channel as well. So that's it for me. Stay safe and vote for Arnold. Because when he becomes, he's going to kick the crap out of the coronavirus. He's going to have a wrestling match, and he's going to get it into a chokehold. He's going to kill that virus until he's going to make everybody break out, and everybody's going to get free steroids. It's going to be heaven on earth. So make sure that you vote. And in the meantime, stay safe and don't do stupid stuff, and don't try and get your freedom by denying other people's freedom. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll explain that some other time. That's it for me. Talk to you guys later.